Christopher, what about you? If it's not God, is it all soluble?
Well, first,
one day?
You're right that science has made many things more comprehensible to us, and it's explained things that religion used to take credit for. In other words, now we know there's a germ theory of disease. Diseases are not curses or revenges from heaven. Same with earthquakes and so on. The stuff they used to teach us, and many of them still do, is nonsense. Evil nonsense as well as ignorant nonsense. But it's also taught us, just in my lifetime, an enormous amount more about how little we know. We're much, much more ignorant than people who lived before Galileo. Because we have now an increasingly large idea of the fantastic expanse of the unknown. That's precisely the moment at which to say that skepticism is what's necessary. Inquiry, debate, doubt. Where's faith in this? Where's the usefulness of faith there? There's no use to it at all. Socrates, who, as far as I know, existed but may well not have done, it doesn't matter to me. No one will insult me if they say, Socrates, your great hero, didn't exist. Try it on a Muslim, try it on a Christian, their prophets didn't exist. Or tell people that Moses is a myth. They start hurling themselves about, making menacing noises very often. Socrates said, you're only educated when you've understood how ignorant you are. And you're only going to even find that out by doubting everything all the time. There's all the difference in the world between that outlook and that mentality, and the mentality of faith. And second, on metaphysics, which you, I noticed, take refuge in several times already this evening, like what is love? Is something poetic or is it prosaic? Very good questions, but metaphysical ones. Those who say God exists and intervenes in the world, in other words, those who say there is a religious God, the God of religion, are saying that redemption is on offer to human beings, that salvation is on offer to them, and that if they reject the offer, they can be in really big trouble. Now, don't start talking to an audience like this, or, if you don't mind, to a debate partner like me, as if religion was a private matter, because everybody knows that if it was, there wouldn't be anything to argue about. It's precisely because it claims to be a total solution, a complete solution to all problems, available on pain of death, sometimes, in some forms, but available to you if you'll only have enough faith. Where we've just found out that faith is probably the most overrated of the virtues and the one least useful to us in the real dilemmas that we actually have to face. I say in my book, available at fine bookstores everywhere, that as long as I don't have to hear about it, I don't mind what people believe. If they say, well, thanks to Joseph Smith and his gold plates, I have real faith now, and I've got a family, and I have friends, and I have a real system, and so on. I say, fine. Just don't come to my front door with it. Don't ask for a tax break for it. Don't ask my children to be taught it in the schools.
Did you sign up tonight thinking you wouldn't hear about it?
And I asked the question in the book. People think they have a personal relationship with the Creator, and they're the possessors of a wonderful secret. It must feel, I've never felt it, but I presume it feels great. Why doesn't it make them happy? They're not happy. They can't be happy until everyone else believes it too. They go out and proselytize, very often, and here's, I can't let your last answer go, very often in the guise of charity. You notice how often that religion, rather than answer the questions that I've put, like, how do you know there's a God? What evidence do you have for it? Which you say, well, lots of good people do good things because they're religious. Well, let's take the most recent pressing case. Richard Dawkins and I and a few others, in the response to the Haiti earthquake, set up an emergency charity for people of non-belief to give to, because so many charitable organizations are, in fact, proselytizing groups. So we raised about $2 million in a weekend. And all that money goes straight. By the way, thank you. If you go to Richard's website, you can find out more about how to donate to this, because it's permanent. It's going to stay in being. All that money went straight to Doctors Without Borders, of course, and the International Red Cross, which, though it has a cross, isn't a religious organization. Both these organizations are already in Haiti. They're proven. None of the money goes to support any missionary activity. None. And the Scientologists and all the others who turned up in Haiti, and the people who turned up in Haiti to kidnap babies to convert them to their faith, and the Catholics who turned up and said, standing in the ruins of their own cathedral, with 250,000 Haitians buried under the rubble, said, God spoke here today, and you should listen to his message. Don't tell me that's good. Don't tell me that's good. That's wicked. It's proselytizing. It's proselytizing with the helpless, using them as objects of charity and conversion. It's lying to people.
But there's also a lot of
It's wrong to
repeated-
lie. It's wrong to lie to people, and it's giving them false hopes and false explanations for their plight. Now, we're not guilty of any of that. And now I ask you another question. Where in the Decalogue does the word goodness appear? Where? That's a good swathe of Exodus for you. Where in Exodus does the word goodness appear? Where in this commandment-rich territory does the word goodness or the enjoinment to be good occur? This should be a softball for you.
Okay. First of all, it tells you what you ought not to do. It says, love your neighbor as yourself in the book of Leviticus. I mean, I'm allowed to move to Leviticus from Exodus.
Yes,
I think that's fair.
yes,
Right.
yes, that's fair.
Yes.
I know you know. That isn't at all what I say. I don't say bad things are done in the name of religion or by authorities. I say it's religion itself that is the problem. I go out of my way to make clear that I don't take refuge in any other position. Now, in Leviticus and in Exodus, if you're a neighbor, you better not, and you're supposed to love him. This person had better not be an Amalekite, a Midianite, a Moabite. Better not be a witch.
Yep.
Or the destruction of whom is enjoined. Better not be a homosexual, the stoning of whom is enjoined. Better not be a slave, the terms of enslavement of which are all laid out. Now, these are primitive, tribal, agricultural. Most of the commandments, by the way, all the Decalogue, by the way, is addressed to the property-owning classes. Here's what you can't do with your servants. Here, your servants must also obey this commandment. Why are the commandments addressed only to people who have staff? Why are the women, rather a large objection, I would have thought, why are the women counted as part of the animal and chattel that's disposable by these holders of property? Couldn't it be any more obvious that this is a man-made phenomenon, and at a time when people were not at their best and were full of fear and ignorance and greed and covetousness of other people's property? Cherry picking is an odd word to use for something that's thrust upon you. I've got no choice but to study the Decalogue.
No, actually,
I point out it says it's addressed to property owners and enjoining them to keep women as property.
So you're
cherry picking.
Are you
picking.
in favor of theft, murder, and adultery? Do you think those are good things?
Well, here's exactly the nub of my question. If what you say is true,
Yes.
not that, and I've never said, I couldn't be interpreted as having said no religious person can do a good thing. But if what you say is true, this should be true, and you should find it easy to point it out.
Okay.
There must be something, not that they can do or do, but that I cannot do, that's a good thing. Either a moral statement made, or a moral or ethical statement performed, that a person of faith could perform that I cannot. Now, you must be able to identify that.
No, actually,
if your point is to have any
how can one human being do something that another human being can't do physically? Physically, of course, you could do anything that I could do, but I can say lots of things you don't do. I can say lots of things you don't do, not that you can't do. You probably don't do, as I do, bless your child on a Friday night. You probably don't create great works of art based on religion. You probably don't go halfway across the world feeling that you're motivated and called by a God who tells you to help other human beings. I mean, all those things are things that religion motivates people to do. Not that you can't do them, but that people generally don't do them if they're not motivated by religion.
No, get real. I mean, pronouncing an incantation
Yes.
isn't a moral action.
Of course it is.
Or is it? No, it isn't.
It's only not a moral action if you don't feel
subjectively
the enormous.
It's not a moral action. Anyway, it is something. It is something I could do. So do you? Well, wait. First, I'm sorry for your loss. As the Irish say. Sorry for your trouble.
Right.
Second, but I'm still going to have to insist. I don't think anyone in the audience can consider that's an answer to my challenge. That's to say, there's a moral or ethical statement or action that an unbeliever could not perform.
But could not means that you're physically incapable of it. And
No.
I'm willing to concede
No, if
right
it's
here,
goodness, it would
you
be
can
moral
do everything I can do.
Well, let's
Of
not go
course
that
you
far.
can.
Let's go.
Of course you can.
All right. Well, then. Okay.
I mean,
all right.
you have to say wouldn't do. You
Well,
can't say
I will leave,
can't
since
do.
you won't answer it, I'll just leave the question to the audience. If anyone
I
can
just
come
did
up
it.
to me and say, here's a moral thing you couldn't do, not don't do, but could not do, that only a religious person do, I'd be very interested to hear of it. No one's ever come up with anything.
Let me ask a
Second,
question.
there was a brief corollary. Think of a wicked thing done, or evil thing said, that is done precisely because of faith. You've already thought of one.
But any that,
Wait.
but any that someone who doesn't have
And
faith
now
couldn't do?
and now
Wait,
you've
tell
got-
me one that
No,
someone who
I
doesn't
didn't-
have faith could not do.
I didn't say that.
Okay, but that's exactly the point.
No, it's not.
A human being can do certain things, whether they're believers or not. They have the physical ability.
It still doesn't...
Believing something doesn't give you a new
it's to
physical
you-
ability.
It's no problem to you that the suicide murder community, the genital mutilation community, these are all faith-based communities.
Do you want me to
while we're
answer
on the
that?
subject of charity, who doesn't hear Hamas saying, the reason we're loved by our people is because we provide social services. We help the needy. We're the only people who come out and do that, which is, by the way, I'm horrified to have to say is true. But do you excuse them for that because they're charitable?
Of course
No.
not.
Do you not think that they bless their children a whole lot?
Yes, and I think
you
that that's a
could-
beautiful
I've heard
thing
them
that they do.
do it.
Right.
You try being.
I don't think
being a
they're-
Muslim children and the child not be blessed the entire time. That's part of the authority that they claim. They claim to own these people.
I want to ask,
This is all faith-based.
who-
It's a starting point myself. I mean, I think it's very good to know that we're born into a losing struggle. I think that the stoicism that comes from that and the reflection that comes from that is very useful. I'm not very impressed by people who say, well, I wish it wasn't true, so I'll try and act as if it isn't. It is true. Everything is governed by entropy and decline and annihilation and disaster. And you're born into a losing struggle, and because you're a primate mammal, you know you are, and you know you're going to die, and that there'll be a lot of struggle and pain on the way. I don't want a world without anxiety and grief and pain and struggle. I can't get it.
No one's saying you
But
can't
those
have
who offer
that.
it to me, I spurn the gift. I don't want what you want. I don't want the feeling of eternal love and peace. Love and peace, very, very overrated in my view. One of the many reasons, actually, I should despise all religions equally, but and I do in a way. But one way which I prefer Judaism to its rivals is that the emphasis is more on justice than on love.
I want to go to the Rabbi. Why is that not misanthropic of you, that attitude?
Misanthropic doesn't mean I have to hate people.
Well,
It means I respect.
hard.
It means
Too
I
bad.
respect them enough. It means I respect them enough not to offer them false consolation.
I do think it's important.
The realm of illusion will not help you to cure this condition.